Hello and welcome back. So this video is going to be a full face of my most expensive makeup products. I've been wanting to do a get ready with me with the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette, which I did review, and one of you guys requested a full face of expensive makeup, so I thought I would just combine them together. And I will also be using the Hourglass Ghost palette, which I did recently review as well, so check those out if you are interested. So let's get into the video. In that review, I did also show two different looks with this palette. So I'm going to use different colors than I did in those looks. I already have on my Milani eyeshadow primer and I set that down already. I'm going to start with this mustard shade down here using my trusty Anastasia brush, which I pretty much use every day. And I'm filming on the iPhone 11 in the last week and a half or so. If you guys have noticed, hopefully you've noticed, the quality is better. It's 4K, which is very exciting. So I really think it is a lot better than my last iPhone. So hopefully you can tell the difference. But I have been loving this palette. It is really high quality, but I don't think that the color story is that unique, which is, you know, what I said in my review. The quality is fantastic, but these colors you can find in a million different palettes. I really like this mustard shade, but I do think there are tons of mustards out on the market. I'm going to use a little bit of this dark brown. So this is one of the cream to powders, which I talked about in my review, is such a unique formula. I've never used anything like this ever. It's a matte, but it's so creamy, and it's probably like the easiest to blend eyeshadow formula I've ever encountered. So I think that's what really makes this palette unique. I'm going to use a little bit more of the mustard shade just to blend this all out. Okay, so the lid shade I want to use is this one here, which is a duochrome. It's like a greenish gold, and I'm using my sponge tip applicator as usual. And wow, yeah, this one is really glittery. I didn't wet my brush. I think maybe I will for the second layer. That was something too, I talked about in my review video, that a lot of these shades are glittery, but I noticed that they don't fall out onto the face throughout the day, which I like. I don't mind glitter as long as it stays there. Not really pressed glitters. They're eyeshadow with glitter inside them. I don't even know if it's showing up on camera how intense that looks. I gotta say, I'm really impressed with this so far. By the way, I'm already drinking out of a Christmas mug. This is my favorite mug, so I use it year-round. When I wet my brush, I try to let it dry a bit before I do like a final blend with the matte. So this is more of that mustard shade. I am happy that Natasha Denona did not waste our time with putting in like a cream shade in here for like a light person's brow bone. So I'm going with the Sultry palette. That, I know that some people want that in every palette, but it's like everybody uses a different brow bone shade. So I don't know. I think it's a waste when those colors are in every single palette, although it's nice to have it in some of them. Alrighty, I skipped a few steps. A drugstore elf primer, and then my Maybelline winged liner. So I don't even own high-end in every category, but I do own one high-end mascara. I don't think this is really luxury, but it's the most expensive one I have. It's the Josie Maran Vibrancy. It is $45. My color is Cosmic G15. I do really like this foundation though. So something I did want to talk about was my low buy budget. I just recently uploaded my Project Use It Up update, where I've been tracking how much I've been spending and using up of makeup and skincare. I've actually been doing that for 3 years before I even had a YouTube channel. I've been keeping track of that. And my budget is $83 a month for makeup and skincare, if you didn't know. Check out that video if you want to hear more about the numbers. But I've been on track until September because, if you can tell, I bought the Natasha Denona palette and the Hourglass palette, which, yeah, the Hourglass palette is $80 And the Natasha Denona is $129. So I'm definitely over budget now. So my plan is to just not buy anything in October, and then I'll have $60 left for November and $60 left for December. I really don't regret getting those though, because I have coveted an Hourglass palette, one of those 6-pan ones, for 4 years. And I never did it, and I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna get it. And same with Natasha Denona. I've always wanted her bigger palettes, and I just could never justify it, so the time has come. e.l.f. concealer. I really like this. I think it is a dupe for Shape Tape for sure. I do own this expensive Charlotte Tilbury powder, which is $45. This is the Airbrush Flawless Finish. I have the color 2 medium, and people raved about this, saying it was like the absolute best face powder, and I talked about it in an overhyped products video. I think it's a good face powder. I like it, but I don't really see the difference between this and like my Milani powder. I like that one just as much. So I just personally think this is one of those products where you're paying for the name and the luxurious packaging. So I'd like to finish this at some point, but I don't think I would get it again. For under eye powder, I have the Lancome Absolu in Absolute Pearl. I love this, and this is expensive too. I think it's $58. But I think the Bare Minerals Mineral Veil is just as good, so I will probably stick with that in the future, but I do want to use this up. And I do want to do a drugstore version of this video also, but I don't know if I'll have time to film it kind of getting ready with me style, so I may just do like a drugstore favorites. But I actually did buy some drugstore makeup in August, and I haven't even talked about that on my channel yet, so I do want to at some point. I am going to use the bronzer in the Charlotte Tilbury Filmstar Bronze and Glow for contour, and then I'm going to use a different bronzer. I do really, really like this palette. This palette full price is $68. I purchased it during the VIB sale, so I think I got it for like $59. It is a really nice product, but it's one of those where I think it's definitely better than the powder by Charlotte Tilbury as far as like being worth the money. It's still a little overrated. For bronzing, you've heard me talk about this a lot. This is the Marc Jacobs bronzer. I always forget, this is Tantastic. The other one's called Tantric. I like both, but I'm gonna use this for bronzing. For blush, I'll be using this Marc Jacobs blush in Flesh and Fantasy. These were really hyped up for a while there. Nobody talks about them anymore, but it's a really nice formula. I can't remember how much these are. They may be $42, and I definitely got this at a VIB sale also. I definitely do try to get my like super expensive makeup on sale when possible, but obviously not always. But I think if something is like I really wanted that Hourglass palette, you know, I think it's fine. If you really want something, just get it. Saving a few dollars really isn't going to do that much in the long run when you're getting an $80 face palette. So I will say this blush is pretty subtle, and I do have to build it up, but it is good for a nice neutral blush. All right, let's use the Ghost palette. I really like this. I will say, I kind of talked about this in my review. I've been using it every day since I got it, and I just think that these two blushes in the swatches and on the face look exactly the same, even though they look very different in the pan. The bronzer is fine, but it's pretty light, and even the blushes are subtle. So I really think this bottom row, it's good, but I have bronzers and blushes I like more. Now, the finishing powders and this highlight, I love. Such a nice formula. The highlighter is Iridescent Strobe Light, and you can purchase all 3 of these items individually and also in this mini size, but the mini size of each is $24, which is, if you bought 3 of these in that size, it would cost more than this palette. So, you know, that wouldn't really make sense, I don't think. But yeah, I'm just not wowed by the bronzers and the blush, but that top row, I love it. Okay, so I'm gonna use this highlighter. It's got like a pink tone in it. I really like it. You know, Hourglass had released one of these strobe light palettes a few years ago, and I heard great things about that. Now that I have this, I'm like, oh geez, I probably should have bought that palette, but that's okay. Maybe they'll release another one. I would much prefer that. I mean, now that I know that I am not wowed by their blushes and bronzers, I'll probably stick with just using their highlighters and finishing powder. Actually, I mean, this highlighter is pretty strong. It's not subtle like their other powders. And in person, it looks, yeah, there you can see it's kind of pink. I really like it. For finishing powder, I am going to use Dim Light. This one I finished out of my other Hourglass palette. I hardly have anything left in that palette. I'm really excited about that. But I missed it so much, so I'm really happy to have that back. I mean, I guess thinking about it, I could have bought the full size for $48, but I'm really glad that I have diffused a light, although I do own a full size of that. But the highlighter is just amazing. Okay, I did my brows and I'm gonna do the lower lash line. I think I'm gonna go with this same brown here. I would love it if Natasha Denona would release a cool tone palette in this size. She does have the Biba palette, which is more cool toned, but that one is, I considered getting that one honestly, but the more I looked at it, it was just pretty blah neutral to me, although it has really good reviews. I don't know, I just wasn't like wowed by it. So hopefully she releases another cool tone palette. I did mascara, time for lips. Charlotte Tilbury again. So clearly you see a theme here of the luxury brands I own. This color is Bitch Perfect, and I talked about this in a few other videos. I like it, but it's really not, I don't think, worth the $34. So yeah, this is like a pinky peachy nude. I do like it, but again, it's not amazing. I'm gonna use a little bit of this Dose of Colors lip gloss in Can You Not. I did used to have a Marc Jacobs lip gloss, but I used it all up. Alrighty, so that is it for this makeup look. I do really like it, and I think that the standout products are definitely the quality of the Natasha Denona palette, even though the colors themselves are not that unique. The ambient lighting powders by Hourglass, I love. I really like the Josie Maran foundation. I love the Marc Jacobs bronzer, but I think some of these things are overrated, honestly, like this Marc Jacobs blush, the Charlotte Tilbury lipstick. So yeah, not all of these products I think are worth the price. Some of them I do think that they are. This eyeshadow is like glittery and beautiful. I don't know if you can tell, but it's amazing. So yeah, that is it for this video. If you're interested, check out those reviews if you have not seen them, and thank you for watching.